Have you ever found yourself just paralyzed by too many options? Maybe staring at like an endless wall of streaming choices and you end up watching nothing?
Oh, absolutely. Or trying to pick a new phone. It's overwhelming.
Exactly. Instead of feeling free, you just feel, bogged down. It's that weird feeling where more choice, the thing we think we want, somehow makes us feel, I don't know, less free. Welcome to The Deep Dive, brought to you by BookCast FM. We're bringing books to life, one cast at a time. Today, we're diving deep into a really fascinating book, one that kind of flips our modern ideas about freedom and happiness on their head. It's Barry Schwartz's famous work, The Paradox of Choice, Why More is Less. So our mission here is to really unpack this counterintuitive idea at the heart of his book, which is that having tons of options, while it seems great, like really empowering, can actually lead to anxiety, feeling dissatisfied, even freezing up completely, decision paralysis. We'll dig into his main arguments, some surprising insights, and importantly, some practical things to help you navigate this world that's just overflowing with choices.
Yeah, what's so interesting, I think, is how Schwartz takes this thing we all assume is good, more choice equals more good, right? And just turns it upside down. He argues that this sheer abundance, especially you see it in affluent societies, doesn't just give us freedom. It actually creates these unique psychological burdens we hardly ever talk about.
Yeah.
And often it pushes us towards things like regret and blaming ourselves rather than, actual liberation.
Okay, let's unpack that. A good starting point he uses is super relatable. He talks about how this paradox shows up in just, everyday life, like going shopping for jeans.
Oh, yes, the jeans example.
Right. He describes being totally bewildered by the sheer number of choices, relaxed fit, slim fit, boot cut, stone wash, acid wash. I mean, the list goes on. But here's the kicker. He actually found a pair that fit better than usual, objectively better. But he walked away feeling less satisfied. How does that even work?
Well, that's the paradox right there, isn't it? Is because with all those options on the table, his expectations for what the perfect pair of jeans should be just shot way up. So anything less than absolute flawless perfection felt like settling, even if the jeans were actually really good. And this isn't just about jeans, of course. Schwartz mentions those famous the supermarket studies.
Oh, but the jazz.
Exactly, the jam study, where shoppers who saw like 24 kinds of jam were actually much less likely to buy any jam at all. And even if they did buy, they're less satisfied compared to the shoppers who only saw 6 types.
Wow.
It shows how choice, which we often mix up with freedom, can actually backfire. Too much becomes counterproductive.
So fewer jams led to happier customers and, surprisingly, more sales. It's almost funny how backward it seems, right?
It really is.
I know, I've definitely done that. Stood in the grocery aisle, stared at like 50 kinds of yogurt, and just walked away empty-handed because it's too much. But is this just about, buying stuff? Or does Schwartz take this idea bigger?
Oh, much bigger. That's a really important question he tackles. Is this just about consumerism? And his answer is a definite no. It's way bigger than just shopping. In the section New Choices, he shows how this choice overload seeps into really critical parts of our lives. Things like careers, relationships, even healthcare and education choices.
Wow.
He talks about this shift towards what he calls an autonomy-centered culture, where we, as individuals, are now basically expected to design our own lives.
Design our own lives.
Yeah, things that used to be kind of default paths or set by tradition or social norms. They've now become these wide-open, customizable, almost like DIY projects.
So it's not just choosing toothpaste anymore. It's like we're choosing our entire identity from scratch. That sounds utterly exhausting.
It is exhausting.
And when we're faced with designing our whole life, what's actually going on in our brains that makes it so draining? Schwartz gets into that in Deciding and Choosing, doesn't he?
He does. He draws a really useful distinction between deciding and choosing. Deciding is that hard cognitive work, evaluating options, weighing the pros and cons, trying to predict the future outcomes. Real mental effort. Choosing is just the final act of picking one.
Okay.
The problem is our brains have limits. We have cognitive limitations. We simply can't rationally process and compare every single feature of every single option when there are tons of them. Whether it's buying a house, picking an investment strategy, or figuring out a career path, we just get overloaded.
Right. It's like our mental bandwidth just gets maxed out.
Exactly.
And that makes sense. More choices mean more mental work, which leads to more second-guessing yourself.
Yeah.
And ultimately feeling less happy with whatever you picked. It's what Schwartz describes so powerfully, saying choice no longer liberates, but it debilitates. It might even tyrannize.
That's a strong word, tyrannize.
It is. But think about trying to buy, say, a digital camera maybe 10 years ago comparing dozens of models, megapixels, zoom, lenses, brand reputation.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Hours of research.
Right. It quickly became mentally exhausting. And even after you bought one, you'd still have that nagging doubt, did I pick the right one?
Or think about investment decisions. Most people get overwhelmed trying to pick between dozens, maybe hundreds, of mutual funds. Often, it just leads to choice paralysis. They end up doing nothing, which might be the worst choice of all.
This is where it gets really fascinating, I think. Schwartz doesn't just point out the problem. He goes deeper into how it messes with our minds and our happiness. And a big part of it starts with how we actually approach making decisions. In Chapter 4, he talks about two different styles, right? Maximizers and satisficers.
That's right, a key distinction. So, maximizers. These are the people who are absolutely driven to find the very best possible choice, the optimal. They will research exhaustively, turn over every stone, compare every feature. They need to be sure they haven't missed anything better.
Okay, the perfectionists.
Pretty much. Then you have satisficers. They're different. They operate on a principle of good enough. They have certain criteria, a threshold of what's acceptable, and as soon as they find an option that meets those criteria, they stop looking.
Ah, okay.
They're content with finding a perfectly acceptable solution. They don't feel the need to explore every single alternative out there, just in case something marginally better exists.
It's really interesting that striving for the absolute best, being a maximizer, often leads to feeling less satisfied.
It is, isn't it?
But I wonder, isn't there a risk, especially with big things like a career or major investments, that not maximizing could mean you miss out or end up with something subpar? How does he square that drive for excellence with the downsides?
That's the real tension, absolutely. And Schwartz acknowledges that maximizers might, in some objective measures, occasionally do better. Maybe they earned a slightly higher salary because they negotiated harder or found that marginally better job. But his research and other research since consistently shows they pay a significant psychological price. They're much more prone to regret, anxiety, depression, and general dissatisfaction with their choices.
Wow.
They spend more time deciding, agonize more, and paradoxically feel worse about the outcome. Satisficers, on the other hand, tend to be happier, more optimistic, and more content with their lives.
So it forces you to ask that question, right? Why are we chasing perfection if it often just makes us miserable?
Exactly. Think about it in online dating. The maximizer might scroll endlessly, swipe after swipe, always convince someone even better is just around the corner. They struggle to commit. The satisficer finds someone who meets their important criteria, kindness, shared values, attraction, and they're more likely to actually invest in that relationship and see where it goes. They stop searching.
That makes a lot of sense. It's a powerful idea. Schwartz even says something like, the choice of whether to be a maximizer or a satisficer may be the most important decision we make.
It's profound.
And this leads right into Chapter 5, the big question, choice and happiness. Does having more choice actually make us happier?
And the answer seems to be up to a point.
Right. Schwartz is clear. Some choice is vital. It's fundamental for autonomy, for well-being. We need some control. But beyond a certain point, what he calls the sweet spot, too much choice actively starts to undermine happiness.
Yeah, he brings back that jam study again.
The 6 jams versus the 24.
Right. Those offered fewer choices weren't just more likely to buy, they reported being more satisfied with the jam they picked.
So having all that freedom, all those extra choices, it can actually turn into a burden. It increases the pressure and maybe even increases self-blame if things don't turn out perfectly.
And that burden gets heavier because of several specific psychological things Schwartz points out. First, in Chapter 6 and 7, he really digs into missed opportunities and regret.
Ah, the what-ifs.
Exactly. Every single time you choose one thing, you are implicitly not choosing countless other things. And as he says in Chapter 6, these opportunity costs subtract from the satisfaction we get out of what we choose, even when what we choose is terrific.
So even a great meal out can be slightly tainted by thinking about the amazing dish you didn't order.
Precisely. That little whisper of what you missed out on diminishes the joy of what you actually have. And this, naturally, fuels regret. That if only, thinking, the second guessing. And the more options you had to start with, the more fuel your imagination has for regret.
Yeah, he has that quote, I think it's Chapter 7, that really hits home. The more options there are, the easier it is to regret anything at all that is disappointing about the option that you chose.
It's so true. Then on top of that, you have the problem of adaptation, which he covers in Chapter 8, hedonic adaptation.
Right, that's basically just getting used to stuff, right?
Yeah, it's our natural human tendency to adjust emotionally to new things, good or bad. That initial burst of happiness you get from a great choice, a new car, a promotion, whatever, it inevitably fades over time as it becomes the new normal.
The novelty wears off.
Exactly. But the tricky part is we often don't recognize this is just normal adaptation.
Yeah.
Instead, we misattribute that fading satisfaction. We think, oh, I must have made a bad choice, or this isn't as good as I thought it would be. We blame the choice or ourselves.
Instead of just realizing it's natural.
Right. As Schwartz puts it, what looks like a disappointment may be nothing more than the natural process of adaptation.
That's why that shiny new gadget feels less exciting after a few months, or why even a big lifestyle upgrade doesn't bring lasting bliss.
Yep. And it doesn't end there. Chapter 9 looks at our tendency to want to keep options open.
The fear of commitment. FOMO, fear of missing out.
Sort of, yeah. It's this compulsion to avoid closing doors. We delay decisions, we hedge our bets, whether it's in careers, relationships, even small purchases.
Because making a choice means losing possibilities.
Exactly. And this leads to procrastination, anxiety.
Yeah.
Because nothing ever feels final. You're always wondering if you should switch.
Yeah.
Schwartz mentions research by Dan O'Reilly, where people would literally pay money irrationally just to keep pointless options available to them. Doors open, even if they never plan to use them.
It's almost tragic, isn't it? He says, sometimes the only way to get the most out of life is to close off the possibilities of life. You have to commit.
It's a hard truth. And this reluctance to commit, this constant scanning of options, ties into Chapter 10. Everything depends on comparison.
Oh, boy. Social media territory.
Definitely amplified by it, yes. In a world where we have so many choices and we see everyone else's choices constantly curated online, we're incessantly comparing our jobs, our vacations, our partners, our stuff to others.
And usually comparing upwards, right, to people who seem to have it better.
Almost always. And this upward comparison, as he calls it, is just a direct route to feeling envious, inadequate, and less satisfied with our own lives, even if our lives are objectively good.
Schwartz has that cutting observation. When everyone has more, no one feels they have enough.
It really resonates. Your perfectly nice car suddenly feels shabby when your neighbor gets a fancier one. Your satisfaction plummets.
And this all culminates maybe in Chapter 11. Whose fault is it? Where does the blame land when we're unhappy with our choices?
Well, in a world that tells you you can be anything, choose anything, design your own perfect life. If you end up dissatisfied, the blame tends to fall squarely on yourself.
Ouch.
Yeah. If there were seemingly infinite options and you still didn't end up perfectly happy, it feels like a personal failing. You must not have chosen well enough, researched enough, tried hard enough.
So as Schwartz says, when there is no one else to blame, we blame ourselves.
Exactly. And that just drives anxiety, lowers self-esteem, whether it's feeling stuck in a job, regretting a health decision, or feeling guilty as a parent. It puts immense pressure on the individual.
It does paint a pretty bleak picture, doesn't it? But thinking about it, especially maybe in fields like entrepreneurship or science or even the arts, wouldn't people argue that constantly seeking the best, being a maximizer, is exactly what drives innovation and success? You need that drive to push boundaries. How does Schwartz address that?
That's a really important point, and Schwartz isn't advocating for, apathy or just accepting mediocrity across the board.
Yeah.
He's not saying we should never strive. He's highlighting the often hidden psychological cost when maximizing becomes the default or the only acceptable way to approach every decision, big and small.
Okay.
So yes, that drive might lead to breakthroughs in certain areas, but it often comes at a steep personal price in terms of day-to-day well-being, stress, and happiness for the individual. The key, he argues, isn't about eliminating choice entirely or abandoning ambition. It's about learning to manage choice more wisely.
Finding that balance.
Exactly. Find that sweet spot where choice empowers you rather than paralyzing or debilitating you.
Okay, so after laying out all these challenges, these psychological traps, does he leave us there? Or does he offer some way out? What do we do about all this choice?
And thankfully, yes. Chapter 12 is titled, What to Do About Choice. He definitely offers hope and, crucially, practical strategies. He's not saying, go live off the grid. He's suggesting ways to change how we engage with the choices we have.
Okay, so how can we reclaim some control? What are the practical steps?
Well, the overall goal of his strategies is to reduce that regret, the second-guessing, the perfectionism, the constant comparison. So for you listening right now, he suggests several key things. First, and this is a big one, Choose when to choose, meaning don't treat every single decision like it's life or death. Figure out which decisions actually matter and deserve your energy, and which ones you can simplify or even automate. Don't agonize over toothpaste brands.
Right, save your mental energy for the big stuff.
Exactly. Second, linked to that, be a selective maximizer. Maybe it is worth maximizing on a huge decision, like buying a house or choosing a life partner, but only where the potential payoff really justifies that immense effort and potential stress.
Okay, pick your battles.
Precisely. Third, and this is maybe the most powerful for daily life, satisfies more often. Actively embrace good enough for most everyday choices.
That feels like a huge mental shift, moving away from needing the absolute best all the time.
It is. But as Schwartz advises, learning to accept good enough will simplify decision-making and increase satisfaction. It frees up so much mental space.
Okay, what else?
Fourth, limit options deliberately. Don't just passively accept the fire hose of choices. Actively narrow things down. Set filters for yourself online. Create rules of thumb for shopping, like I only look at these 2 brands. Use what psychologists call choice architecture on yourself.
Take active control of the options you even consider.
Yes. Fifth, practice gratitude and self-compassion. Once you've made a choice, focus on the positive aspects of it, not on what you might be missing. And if it doesn't turn out perfectly, be kind to yourself. Recognize that not every outcome is controllable.
Less dwelling on the what-ifs.
Much less. Sixth, pretty straightforward, avoid social comparison. Be mindful of triggers. Maybe that means less mindless scrolling through perfectly curated social media feeds that just make you feel inadequate.
Easier said than done sometimes, but crucial.
Very. And finally, make decisions final, or at least more final. Once you've made a reasonably informed choice, commit to it. Resist the urge to constantly reevaluate and second-guess. Otherwise, you're just stuck back in that loop of paralysis.
These are really, really helpful insights, especially for anyone feeling that kind of modern decision fatigue. So this whole deep dive into the paradox of choice really drives home that idea. Freedom to choose is vital, yes, but just piling on more and more options doesn't automatically make us better off.
Not at all. It can paradoxically make us less happy, more anxious, more prone to regret.
It's such a powerful reminder that sometimes, yeah, less truly is more. And maybe finding contentment has more to do with managing our own expectations than trying to optimize every single outcome.
Absolutely. We've explored why chasing the best so often leaves us feeling, well, worse off. Less satisfied, less free, more regretful. And maybe that leaves an important question for you, the listener, to think about. What's just one small step you could take, maybe even today, to consciously embrace good enough in one specific area of your life? Just one thing to try and reclaim a little bit more peace of mind from the tyranny of choice.
That's a great question to ponder. If this deep dive has got you thinking and you want to really explore all of Barry Schwartz's insights, his research, and those practical strategies in more detail, we definitely recommend picking up a copy of the book. It's The Paradox of Choice: Why More is Less. And we'll put a link to purchase it right there in the description for this deep dive. Supporting the author is always a great way to engage further. Thank you so much for joining us on The Deep Dive. We're brought to you by BookCast FM, bringing books to life one cast at a time. We look forward to our next exploration together.